All right. First and foremost, I want to thank all the Patreon supporters of this podcast because you guys are the salt of the earth, in my opinion. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate that you willingly donate to the show and to keep this show going and growing. So shout out to all my Patreon subscribers. If you want to get more involved, feel free to go check out patreon.com/bigtruth. And you can see the different subscription levels there. And they all have their own little benefits and privileges and whatnot. But you got some big things planned for this year that are going to be exclusives just for the Patreon subscribers. So get in now. Now, if you need old, well, not even just old, if you just need motorcycle parts or, gear, you need to check out Old Bike Barn over at oldbikebarn.com or on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot at Old Bike Barn. They got whatever you need for your Harley, but more importantly, and I'm not saying more importantly because there's plenty of places where you can find Harley parts, but there's not a lot of places that have like weird old Japanese motorcycle parts. Old Bike Barn is where you want to go. People come in here all the time and be like, hey, do you got this thing for my XS650? And I'll look and I don't have it, but I'm like, I guarantee Old Bike Barn has it, so go check them out. And on top of that, they're salt of the earth motherfuckers. Like Bear and his staff are all solid people. He gives a lot to the industry and really gives a shit. So give back and support oldbikebarn.com. They also have cool knives and leather goods and motorcycle apparel under the White Knuckler brand, and it's all made in the U.S., and it's all made in-house with them guys. So check them out, oldbikebarn.com. If you have any issues like sleeping or with insomnia type stuff, or you got muscle aches and pains or injuries and anxiety, things like that, you've been wanting to check out CBD oil because everyone knows about CBD now. It's pretty out there. I mean, you can go buy some garbage CBD at the local bodega. Don't do that. Go to cradlelakeclear.com. All organic materials, all top end. Go to cradlelakeclear.com. They check it out. They break down the whole process of how they make their CBD oil. Best CBD in the game. Cradlelakeclear.com. Now, if you need some CBD for your pet, you get a little anxious Chihuahua or some shit, or fucking got a horse that needs a CBD oil, with an achy leg or something, or your cat, whatever, you need to check out VetCS over at vetcs.com. It's a CBD oil company, and they specialize in CBD oil for pets, and it was founded by a vet and a vet tech. And again, same thing, all organic, all top-end ingredients, made in the USA, made here. Not some fucking garbage, shipped over, labeled, and fucking got weird chemicals in it. All organic. So check them out, vetcs.com. If you happen to be in the unfortunate situation where you find yourself in a... and so, by the way, if you use the promo code BIGTRUTH at either of those CBD companies, Cradle Lake Clear or VetCS, you will receive a discount on your order, like 20%. So it's a substantial discount. So check them out. CradleLakeClear.com, VetCS.com. Use the promo code BIGTRUTH at checkout. Now going back to the motorcycle accident shit. Hopefully you never have to use these guys, but if you do find yourself in the unfortunate situation where you are in a motorcycle accident, you need to check out Law Tigers over at lawtigers.com, or go to Facebook and type in Law Tigers in your state so you can get in touch with your local office. It's a motorcycle law firm specializing in motorcycle accidents and injuries sustained from that. Founded by motorcycle riders for motorcycle riders. Omerta is a clothing company run by my boy and two of my brothers, and a lot of what we're going to talk about in this episode is applicable to this brand because, this whole stop glorifying rats, fucking be a stand-up dude, like old school gentleman shit. That's what Omerta's about. And, check them out, omertamia.com. And they got whatever you need, T-shirts, fucking hoodies. We're going in the summer. You might not need a scarf. Well, maybe you live in Alaska and you need a scarf. I don't know. But they screen everything in-house. They use American-made apparel wherever possible. Top-of-the-line shit. Real deal. Everyone wants to do a lifestyle brand. These dudes lived a lifestyle and then made a brand around it. It wasn't like, they tried to buy into a lifestyle. So real as it gets, omertamia.com. Use the promo code BIGTRUTH at checkout. Get 20% off your order. Now, If you're still looking for more clothes, maybe you're a little more on the dark side of things, like you're into weird shit, like you're a little twisted, you like the occult, or, you like, doom, fucking stoner metal shit, you like drugs, you like psychedelics, you like fucking motorcycle, like choppers, you like serial killer stuff, or just stuff about cults, cult leaders, and everything like that. If you like any of those things, but if you like more than one of those things, then you're gonna definitely like Heavy, and you go check them out. Heavy Clothing, heavy.bigcartel.com is the website, or on Instagram at Heavy Clothing. And Zac is one of the co-hosts of this episode, so you're gonna listen to him in a second, helping me out on the co-hosting. Or hosting this episode. So heavy.bigcartel.com or Heavy Clothing. And now if you use the promo code FTW, which is exclusive to this podcast, at checkout, you get 13% off your order. Now, if you know anything, Heavy doesn't really do a lot of sales and anything like that. So use the promo code FTW. That's a way for telling them that I sent you, and you get 13% off your order there. So be stoked about that, because there's not a lot of deals going on there, like, you know what I mean? So we got the inside scoop. We get you some hookups. If you're into motorcycles, you need to check out Chop Cult. It's the biggest information clearinghouse and message board set up out there for motorcycle riders and chopper builders and custom bikes and everything like that. It's all broken up by topic, easy to navigate, absolutely free to join. They don't ask your credit card or nothing. They also have some of the highlights to me is that they have an events page that you can find out about motorcycle events all around the world, by date, by location, well-structured, well-organized. And they also have an online swap meet where you can buy, sell, and trade parts. They got a mailing list that you set up for, so you can get like a little digest sent to you, and all kinds of cool shit. So check them out on all the social media, simply at Chop Cult, or go to chopcult.com. If you're into punk and metal, then and hardcore, obviously, the unholy trinity of music's there. You need to check out Pitchfork at pitchforkny.com. This is the clothing company that your favorite bands are wearing. And they also have a record label that they just put out a new New York hardcore compilation 12-inch. And they've been around for like a decade. Like, they got a lot of years into this. So check them out, pitchforkny.com. They know what they're doing. Rad stuff all the way around. If you can also check out my motorcycle shop, which is Chopperhead, if you don't know that already, and if you're not local to New England, you go to chopperhead.com, which is CHOPPAHEAD. But if you are in the New England area, or you just happen to be coming out here, then you need to stop by, because we're a full service brick and mortar. I'm trying not to say it with a Boston accent, but it's hard. Brick and mortar store, which means we're a real shop. We're not like we're not operating out of a storage unit or something, or like a basement. Like, we're a full service brick and mortar motorcycle shop. So what does that mean? It means we have a parts counter, we have a showroom with all stocked up. I just got a bunch of helmets in for the springtime, because everyone's starting to ride again. I got to giant order of KDs coming in. So whatever you need, riding apparel and riding gear, we got it. But more importantly, we're a full service shop. So, whether you need an oil change or a full custom chopper built, we got you. So check it out, chophead.com, 13 County Road, East Freetown, Massachusetts, 508-995-6764 is the number. Check us out. And, the thing I'm lacking the most on is updating the website and putting a lot of products on the website. There's just too much, and it's overwhelming, and I probably should just hire a person to do that specifically. But we can get you any part you need. So give us a call if you don't see it on the website. If you want more information on the podcast, check out bigtruthpodcast.com. And that's it for now. Let's just jump right in.
Sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
All right. Once again, we have liftoff. I want to thank everyone for tuning into this episode of the Big Truth Podcast, and we're doing a video component to this one as well, not just the audio. And I have a special guest host, my man Zac Doom from Heavy Clothing, and also so he's been one of the behind-the-scenes producers of this podcast. So he's going to step in and do some guest hosting with me today, and I have Seth Ferranti on as a guest today, who has a killer backstory, very interesting story. He's an author. He's a documentarian. He makes films and has a lot to say, and was a victim on the war on drugs in the early days of that, and went to jail for a long time for things that people don't even... That's all legal now for the most part. So Seth's got an interesting backstory, and someone we've been stoked to have on. I know we've been talking for a long time getting this set up, so I'm glad we got it today. And I know that you're out there in Tahoe trying to get a little bit of skiing in, so we won't take up too much of your time so you can hit the slopes before the snow melts out there. But Seth, thank you for coming on today, and Zac, thank you for guest hosting.
For sure, man. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it too, man. I appreciate you guys being interested in what I got to say.
No, absolutely, man. And I just bungled some. I had a little technical glitch, so we're just starting over. So, Seth, you had just started to get into your background and your kind of the backstory of your life, and you know, if you could kind of go through for people that might not be familiar with your story, it's fucking. It's tragic, but fucking inspirational at the same time because of what you made of it. If you can kind of go into kind of your backstory and what led you to where you are now.
Yeah, you know, I was born and raised in California. My dad was in the Navy, so I was a military brat. So we kind of bounced East Coast, West Coast. He was stationed in different places. I even lived overseas. I lived in Germany. I lived in England. But we always seemed to end up back in Southern California, you know, San Diego, because they had the big Navy port there. And I think it was kind of, you know, just moving around all the time for me and always having to make new friends, you know, and be the new guy. You know, I was always kind of looking for something, you know, in life, you know, because I didn't have that stability. So I was always kind of looking for something, felt like I was missing something. And at the age of 13, you know, I discovered it. And, you know, back in the day, you know, we called it weed or marijuana, but, you know, now they call it cannabis. So, you know, I kind of discovered cannabis at a real early age, 13, and I kind of fell in love. And, you know, that was kind of the beginning of my journey, you know, like into the counterculture, into the drug underworld, you know, into the realms of, you know, the deadheads and, you know, the metal scene and the punk, because when you get into a lot of those scenes, you know, a lot of people, you know, they're stoners. They smoke weed. It's just, you know, what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. But you didn't just get into it like for yourself for recreational. You kind of made a whole kind of lifestyle out of it, right?
Yeah, you know, it was weird because, you know, from a real young age too, from like that 13, like, you know, I wanted to be a rock star, man. That was like my thing. Like I played guitar and I sung. You know, I was all right, but, you know, it wasn't like I was anything special. You know, I played in bands, you know, like a lot of us do as teenagers, you know, who like metal and stuff like that. So, you know, I really, you know, like I love like Motley Crue, you know, Van Halen, like Rat, you know, and then Metallica, Guns N' Roses. I mean, that was my shit, you know, in the mid to late 80s. And, you know, I wanted to live that lifestyle, you know, that sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And it really never happened for me, you know, musically, because, you know, I mean, whatever, you know, not everybody is cut for everything. So you kind of got to go, you know, where you're good at. And to me, that want to be a rock star, I became a drug dealer instead. And it kind of gave me that same recognition, that same sense, you know, because just like a rock star, you know, when a rock star walks in the room, everybody knows he's there. You know, when the drug dealer walks in the room, it's the same thing. You know, it's just on a little level, maybe a little more underground. So, you know, when I first started dealing, it was just because, you know, I was just like the most bold and brash kid. You know, like everybody would give me their money and I would go score, you know, and I was pretty successful at it. You know, I didn't get ripped off or no shit like that. You know, I would handle business. And then I quickly found out, you know, that if everybody's giving me money and I go score, I don't have to put in any money. I can get free drugs. You know, so that was the first thing, like 14, 15, you know, but then kind of by 15, you know, as kind of like a sophomore, I kind of figured out, I was like, you know what? I can get free drugs and I can make money. So when that happened, it just like, opened up all this, big realm of, possibilities, and I just kind of ran with it.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting business model. You know what I'm saying? Like, just dealing in those types of substances, and all the gray area.
Yeah, and then too, I was always the type of dude. Like, look, I tell people all the time, I was a weed and psychedelics dude. I never gravitated, to like, the harder drugs. I had friends, that did heroin. I had friends that did cocaine, and later I had friends that did meth. And I always, for whatever reason, but I think it's because I'm already hyper. I'm already super outgoing. So I didn't need those. Some people need those drugs, to kind of get hyped and kind of come out, like they get on coke or whatever, and then they're the life of the party. But, when they're not, I was so hyper, like I needed to calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
So that's why I was smoking weed 24/7, because I was hyper. And then, I was always kind of like I was always kind of like questioning and challenging authority too, from a young age, like 13. Like they'd say, like, when you go to school, or even your parents, like, you got to do this. And I'd be like, well, why? And then so that kind of led to my curiosity with psychedelics like LSD and mushrooms, because I read a lot of books like Aldous Huxley. I was a big Jim Morrison fan. And I was like, I wanted to expand my mind. I wanted to open my mind. I wanted to see things a different way, because I feel like in life, a lot of us, like we do, in our society or the way we're raised, you got blinders on, and you don't see everything. So I wanted, I felt that cannabis kind of gave me that to an extent, but then psychedelics took it to a whole nother level.
Sure, man.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
Now,
I mean, it took like for me, like the first time I did psychedelics, I remember I actually got the message like really quick. You know what I'm saying? And then that message that I got, like, that definitely altered the course of my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not necessarily in a bad way.
No,
But it
absolutely.
took the blind.
Now, Seth, though, this is like you're 13 when you start dabbling in drugs. Like, when did you start really selling, and how did that go, man? Being a young cat, like, and making moves like that, because like you did kind of you might have started off so just kind of like you said, kind of just selling enough where you could smoke for free, but then at some point you were moving a little bit of weight. Like, how did that like process go as someone being that young? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I think it was around 16. Like, I made the conscious decision. So we're talking like probably like 1987. I made the conscious decision. I was like, I want to be a cash millionaire.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I just like, that was, I don't know where I got that. Maybe it was like the Scarface, or, maybe like those other movies like that came out in the early 80s, and maybe they kind of, inspired me. But, I wanted to do it my way, because, I was in the suburbs. I was a white kid in the suburbs. I wouldn't say not rich or anything, but middle class.
Sure.
I grew up, middle class military brat. So I made a decision. I was like, I want to become a cash millionaire. And I'm kind of the person, I'm pretty versatile. I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm not like the best at anything. And, when you're a kid, it's like you're always striving to find like, what can I be the best at? Or, because like in high school, it's always like, the best basketball player, the best football player, the best guitarist, the best singer. They're the ones that get all the girls, right? So I was never the best. I was good at a lot of stuff. Everybody fucked with me, but I was never the best at anything. And when I started getting into the drug world and doing the drugs, it was kind of like, I can be the best drug dealer. And when I figured that out, I was like, I was just like, man, I'm going to do this. And it was an evolution. It wasn't something that kind of happened overnight. It was first something that I wanted to do. But then, I had to get the right connections, so that probably took me another, 12, 18 months. So it wasn't until I was almost 18, that I actually, and also it was when my friends started going off to colleges, that kind of expanded my market, because I went to a big high school, 4,000 people, Robinson High School in Fairfax, Virginia. Because when my dad retired from the military, he took a job at the, at the State Department.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Working, basically selling like military stuff, So we lived in DC, right outside of DC. And as all my friends, as all my friends started going to colleges, all over the East Coast, I sold drugs, weed and acid to them and mushrooms in high school. And they would be like, hey, yo, can you come up? It's dry. There's nothing here. Because remember, too, like back in the 80s sometimes, especially the late 80s, like in the summer, like it would be dry. You couldn't get weed anywhere. Yeah.
Like,
and it was all that
1990, they wiped it out, and they would even have commercials that were like, this is in Virginia. They're like, you think it's dry now? Wait till next year. And it was, it was like the weed thing is definitely, not what it is these days for sure.
Yeah, we were smoking the brick pop back then too. We were, maybe in the fall. In the fall, you could get, because that was when the Emerald Triangle in Humboldt started kicking out a lot of bud, like in the mid '80s. So you would get that like in the fall, maybe from like September to December. And a lot of people were bringing it back east. But then the rest of the year, it was like the fucking the brick pop. So first I started out with weed, but then that's really why I started doing LSD, because it was like in the summertime, I was trying to keep my lifestyle and my money up. And I was always trying to build my money up for the fall. Because back then you could get that really good weed for like, 12 to 1,600 a pound, and then you could sell like $200 an ounce all fucking day. So that was when I really made my money in the fall, so that's how I started getting the LSD, because I would dabble on a little LSD, but then, when it would be dry in the summer, I just started, through going on tour, and my connections, on the Deadhead scene, I would get it like mail order, 100 sheets sent at a time. And I would just like flood all of Northern Virginia. It's funny too, because when I started fucking with acid, like maybe around 88, like it was like $15, $20 a hit in Northern Virginia, and on the East Coast. And then after I started getting shit, like I was bringing 10,000 hits in a month. Right, I'm telling you, within a year, dude, or probably 2-3 years. By the time I caught my case in '91, yeah, less, it was like even $2-3 a hit. Five. Yeah, it went way down.
I went to VCU in Richmond, Virginia, like '89, '90. So I was like, I was on the East Coast, and like something I wanted to go into, because like you're talking about Dead tour and Dead shows, and how that was like a networking place. And a lot of people, when they hear, Grateful Dead shows, and unless they've been to a fucking show in a parking lot, maybe an overnight one, they don't know what they're talking about. Talk about like a traveling counterculture fucking circus that I haven't seen, since. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it was definitely, man. It was definitely like, it was like an open air drug market. I mean, they talk about like down in the hood in DC, or like even New York, like they got in certain spots, they got these open air drug markets. But dude, the fucking, wherever the Dead lot went, and they would go across the nation, and it would just be like fucking out of control, like crazy, and this is like, at the height of the war on drugs too, when the war on drugs first started. And, for a while, eventually they started bringing in all the DEA, and people started getting, more kind of smooth with it, but at first, when I first started going, like 86, 87, everything was like wide open. Dudes would walk around like, fucking trips, Homer Simpsons, you know what I'm saying? Blue unicorns.
Yeah. I went to Dead shows in like 90, and I remembered like seeing these people, and I'm like, okay, so where's everybody when Dead tour's not happening? And then I ended up on the Hate and the Panhandle in San Francisco, but it was the same thing. You walk down the street, it'd just be like, trips, buds, this, that, just, and not only
Humboldt, all Humboldt bud too.
Yeah, I mean, and they were busting people on the Hate. You sold a little, I mean, it was what, $20 a gram, or a Hate, which is like 2 grams or whatever. And but my one buddy got busted. I mean, he got in fucking big trouble for like not small scale distribution.
Yeah,
but
that's where all the deadheads they gravitated to Frisco, they gravitated to the Bay Area, and then a bunch of them too. They gravitated up to the Emerald Triangle, like Humboldt, Mendocino, and Trinity. I know a lot of dudes that were on tour like back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, and they're like legal weed farmers up in Humboldt, but they were outlaw farmers for a long time too. But yeah, I love Dead tour, and it's funny too, because I always tell people I wasn't really into the music, because I'm like a metal. I like metal, and I like metal. And, Yeah, and I like a lot of rap too, but I like metal and rap. Those are my things. You know what I'm saying? And I like a lot of punk stuff. So I was never a big deadhead for the music. I used to go for the scene because it was fucking unreal. Yeah, it was unreal, man.
And I remember in like it's probably '91 when like the heroin and the coke and all that, and it was I think it was at like Cap Center, which is like all the places they would play around there are right on the edges together like motherfuckers. You know what I mean? And then when that crowd, like the fucking hood street dealer dudes started coming into the lot, walking around, the music went from the Dead to straight up hip hop and rap and shit. It's like Shakedown Street, like its final years, it definitely like was changing big time.
Oh yeah. No, and too, like, dude, I knew because I had a bunch of deadhead friends that were fucking hardcore heroin users, right? And they used to love DC, dude, because they said DC had the best fucking heroin.
Yeah, you definitely could see that. And I ran into some like Wrecking Crew people, some JBC, and with like psychedelic justices, like I heard my one buddy told me like if they wanted to get somebody off tour, you know what I mean, the dude's stealing or raping,
man.
They fucking
look when I went on tour in the late '80s, dude, the Wrecking Crew, those dudes were like the Regulators, man. You know what I'm saying? Like fucking like Fast Eddie and all those fucking dudes. Like, you didn't fuck with them when you saw those fucking dudes coming. I mean, and there was only there'd only be like maybe 3, 4, 5 of them, but they didn't fuck around, man. Those dudes were the fucking real deal. And at the same time, like, they were the Regulators on the lot. But what intrigued me a lot is you would hear like all the names of the people, like the chemists, like they weren't out on the lot, but you would hear their names like whispered in like reverent tones. Like people didn't even want to say their names because it was like the outlaw thing. Dudes like Owsley, Leonard Picard, Tim Scully, like all the big chemists, man. And I remember it was like some Jesse James, like Wild West shit, being on there because you had like these legendary figures, mythological figures that you never saw, and then you get the Wrecking Crew, Fast Eddie, and all those dudes like on the lot, like wrecking havoc. Somebody was selling bad acid, or somebody was ripping people off, or doing anything with women. Anybody fucking around with women, they would just go in. And that's weird too. Cause they kind of brought. That was like, I mean, I know if you look at the history of the Dead, I mean, the Dead and the Hells Angels go way back, to the late '60s. But but by the '80s, it was the Wrecking Crew was really. I mean, and they're kind of like, I mean, they're not real Hells Angels, but a lot of people say they're like they were honorary Hells Angels. But they were that biker influence. So there's always been that mix, with the Deadheads and the bikers. It's always kind of been, really common, like two groups that are kind of, juxtaposed together.
Yeah, on the East Coast, they actually had a club called the Grateful Dead Motorcycle Club, and they were tied in with the other bigger motorcycle clubs. And I heard it at one point that like how one thing I thought was cool is you remember the school buses with the fucking welded, all that, like, so there'd be like a caravan of painted buses, dudes on choppers, just cruising to the next show. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah. And I still got a buddy. I still got a bunch of buddies today who they're kind of like, they're not Wrecking Crew, but they're kind of like the legacy of the Wrecking Crew because in the '80s and '90s, like those were the dudes they looked up to, and they might have did bids and stuff like that, for acid or weed. But like you see them today, and they got their fucking Harleys, but it's all like tricked out with Grateful Dead stuff. It's a Harley, but they got like the the casein with the steely face and stuff like that. And some of those, like they pay a lot of money for those. It depends on who the artist that makes them. Yeah, like man.
The with the beadwork on the back and stuff.
Yeah.
Like the nicest shit you can have out there for sure.
Yeah, so there's a lot of dudes, man. There's a lot of dudes that still carry the flag, in kind of the Deadhead land. That biker flag, as a legacy of the Wrecking Crew. I'm actually in my documentary series, of Psychedelic Revolution. We actually got some little segment of that we're going to be exploring. Like the lot when we go into the '80s and the war on drugs, and we're going to kind of explore all that and look at it and kind of give it its due in pop culture.
Yeah, I've been waiting for it. I mean, like I said, because when I saw that, man, that really turned me on to like the whole way of life. When I saw people living how they were living and traveling, and I thought it was an amazing fucking thing. It was almost as like, as fucking life changing as doing acid itself. You know what I'm saying? But I it definitely needs to do. There's like maybe one or two like old lock videos on YouTube or something. That you'll see some characters in. But yeah, people are missing out.
A lot of those dudes are past, man. One of the only ones left is Rack. Rack's still around. Okay. Rack's from New York City, so he's still around. He was with Fast Eddie and all that, and he's still around. So, yeah, but a lot of the other dudes, they passed away,
When I was on The Hate, and I remember, I think Fast Eddie and this other dude would, like, pose as fucking narcotics detectives, right? They would just be driving around the block, and they'd see some young white kids fucking cop some dope or something. They'd jump out, grab their shit. So we were always also, like, people were always, like, looking out for those guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, they would definitely get down like that. It's a good and the bad. The good and the bad with everything.
Oh, for sure.
So
yin and yang balance up, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But dude, so like trying to make, you started getting into to moving drugs, which, I hesitate to even call like weed or psychedelics drugs, because to me they're more like medicines. But how did you get taken seriously as like a 16 or 17-year-old kid making moves in that world? Like, cause that's, you know what I mean? You don't see a lot with that.
Yeah. I was always kind of, I'm tall. I was like, so by really 15, I was like 6'1", you know what I'm saying? And,
yeah.
It was the way I carried myself. I've always been real bold, brash, confident. So, I don't know what it is about me, but it's like, whatever I do, like people trust me, man. People believe that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. That's the way I come across. And, I've always been the type of person, to always, take care of any obligation, kind of do what I got to do, so I've always been like that. So yeah, I was going down, dude, I was going down to Texas, and I was getting shit out of Dallas when I was 16. So I would fly down there, and, back then you could just go to the airport, get a ticket, say like, I'm Dave Smith, pay cash, one-way ticket, go fly down. I'd fly down with a bunch of money, you know what I'm saying, right in my backpack, like, hey, fuck with it. Then I would score, mostly I was dealing with Mexican guys, sometimes, a lot of times, however much cash I brought, they would front me the same amount. And then I would pack that shit, like I had this big green Samsonite suitcase. I would check that right through the baggage. And, I'd come back and I would pick it up like in, DC National or Dulles Airport, right off the luggage bin. And a lot of times they have like 50, 75 pounds of pot, and they're like all packaged up. Brick pot though. So brick pot's a lot smaller, because it's all compressed. But, yeah, man, it really just, even though I was young, it was just, about being a man of my word,
yeah,
and handling business. When you keep coming with that money, they don't give a fuck how old you are. They just give a fuck about the money in that game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So at the point, like, what was the point? Because it is a couple of years span before the plot thickens, I guess. But like at your height, like what. How much were you moving of like weed or like LSD stuff, like, or shrooms or whatever, psychedelics?
Yeah, I was probably doing like 10,000 hits a month, so like 100 sheets. And then the weed, I didn't really make that much money off the LSD. I would probably get it for about 25, 30 cents a hit. I would get it sent for Frisco. They would lay it out there and send it to me. And then I would sell it. I was wholesale, I would wholesale 10 sheets for like, 80, 90 cents a hit. So maybe, I make $6,000 on 10,000 hits. So I wasn't making that much money on that. But the weed, dude, I made a lot of money on the weed because I would go down to Texas and even Florida. I used to get weed brick pot out of Fort Myers. Fort Myers is like was a big weed port back then. So, I got it up to where I would get like 50, 100 pounds at a time. Mm. And I would get it for like, whatever, 400, and I would bring it back up to the East Coast, and I would sell it for like 11, 12, so I was making, I'd like 100 pounds, I'd make like 80 grand, and it might take a little longer, but I would do that like every 2-3 months, I would get 100 pounds, it would take me about 2-3 months, so I figure by probably 18, I was basically making about 25 grand a month.
Yeah.
When we're talking like 1989, but I had a system too, so as my friends went out to colleges, I followed them. So, I had dudes I went to high school with, and they were kind of like my main guys. And when I first started going, it would be like I would just sell it. They would have all their friends come over, and I would sit there and sell it. But eventually, I would just start leaving stuff with them, and fronting it. So it ended up by like, basically like 1989, 1990, I was supplying 15 colleges in 5 states,
Yeah.
all around Virginia, like all the Virginia schools, Virginia Tech, VCU, yeah, Radford, UVA, then I would do like University of Kentucky, Lexington. One of my really big markets was West Virginia University up in Morgantown. They used to take fucking tons of fucking drugs. That was my biggest moneymaker. And then I would go over to Pennsylvania, and I would go to State College, but I would hit all the satellite campuses too. Because a lot of my friends, they were just like the freshmen and sophomores, so they're on they got like those 7 satellite campuses. So I would supply all those, and then as they became juniors and went to State College, I would supply State College. Then I come down through Maryland. I do like University of Maryland, and then I would even hit like the DC schools. I would hit them off with weed and shit. So yeah, that's how. And this is like it wasn't automatic, but I'd say by 1990, I tell people too. I mean, I sold drugs really since I was 13. So I basically sold drugs from 13 to when I got busted. I caught my case at 20, and then I sold drugs again when I was a fugitive for 2 years. But I only really had like a really good run. I had like a 9-month run, like 90, 91, because I caught my case in 91. So I had that 9-month run where like I was really fucking, making a lot of money. And that's when I was like, man, I'm going to finally accomplish my goal to be a cash millionaire. I figured within a couple years. But, at the time, like I had no idea, the war on drugs, because this was like 91. And so when they started the war on drugs, they were concentrating, mostly in the inner cities and busting all the black dudes in the hood, because of the crack and all the violence and stuff. That's kind of why they made those laws. But then after a couple years, when they filled up the federal prisons with all African Americans, it was like 75, 85% African Americans, then they started getting a lot of pushback, that these laws were racist, which they were. And then that's when I was in that first wave, dude, when they went out to the suburbs. So that was like 91. So 91, that's when like the DEA and the federal prosecutors, they were like, we're going to go out to the suburbs and we're going to start busting, white drug dealers. So it was like, I had no idea. Like I thought like this could go on forever. I never thought I would get busted, because I didn't carry a gun. I wasn't violent. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when you're dealing with weed and psychedelics, it's a pretty laid back situation. That's why I didn't fuck with people. Like if motherfuckers did coke, if motherfuckers, did heroin, I might have friends that did that, but I didn't do any business with them.
Yeah.
Because I know when people do those drugs, man, they could do crazy shit. And I didn't want to be involved, But I always did too. Like my biggest thing was, I was the type of dude, like, let's say I'm coming to see you. I'm going to call you and be like, oh yeah, dude, what's up? I'm going to be there in like 5 hours. But really I'm a half hour away. So I used to use a lot of misdirection.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So people, because I was always driving around and I always had drugs and I always had money, and I was going from place to place. And so I used a lot of misdirection just in case, because not to say the people that I'm taking the drugs to, not to say that they're going to try to rip me off, but, kids like to talk and act like they're big and, oh, my dude's coming in, he has this, and the wrong person hears that, and then boom, they're going to try to take my money and drugs, So I would always lose a lot of misdirection. So people never really knew where I was, and I would pop up in different places at different times, but basically I operated like a front, I fronted everything, and I would just come back and get the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just, dealing drugs on the East Coast in, 89, 90, 91. I mean, yeah, you pretty much had to fly under the fucking radar. You know what I'm saying? And use a lot of misdirection. And, yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, so at this point, like, what blotter prints were you handling out there? Like, because I remember it's like Blue Unicorn, fucking Bart Simpson,
Then they had a lot of white. They went to the white blotter for a long time too, just with no prints. But I used to get mostly MC Escher prints.
Okay, and like where, like I know you can't like. Were you getting close to these LSD families at the time?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. The people that I was getting it from, I mean, they were like different families. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like folklore behind that, and it's like it's been kept such, just the nature of it. You have to keep it secret. You know what I'm saying? But I mean,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I've been reading like Leonard McCard's book, and yeah, I find like his whole philosophy on how he operated, man. Talk about some next level shit, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. No,
Like
all
he's
those
like,
dudes. It was like, look, like back then, I was just talking about this, with my boy the other day because I'm doing all these documentaries now, and I'm asking people like, pictures. Nobody has no fucking pictures because back then, like, we didn't take pictures. Dude, if somebody took pictures, like, I would bounce. Like, you didn't take my fucking picture. If you trying to take my picture, I'd be like, what are you, the fucking DEA?
Yeah,
You're trying to build, because shit got so fucking real with the time, dude. You had to protect yourself. And then that was also kind of like the legacy of dudes like Leonard Picard and Owsley. Like, they were like, you heard about them, but you never saw them. And you definitely barely saw any fucking pictures of these dudes. So that was the whole thing. Like people didn't know my name. They didn't know Seth Ferranti, but I didn't have like a nickname. Everybody just knew Seth, but nobody knew my last name. But, that was the thing. Like, you try to stay underground. You didn't do business. Like now, and especially like kind of, in the age of hip hop and especially now, like with Instagram and all this, like people flaunt that shit, dude. Like we didn't flaunt that shit, dude. We didn't want nobody to know what we were doing. We, like if I'm going to come and do a deal with you and your man's right there, I'm like, nah, your man got to leave or we got to go in the room. I'm not saying nothing in front of him. No money's changing hands, nothing. Just because, the DEA, man, they were targeting motherfuckers. So you had to be real careful. So everything went real fucking low key, real fucking underground.
yeah, I mean, I developed literally a fucking lifelong paranoia vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Did you ever go to like the DC Smokeheads?
Yeah, no, I don't think I ever went because back then, like people would get arrested for those things, dude. So like, I'm not putting myself anywhere where I'm gonna get arrested when I'm fucking, I'm running like this big fucking drug operation. Like I said, I did everything like payphones. It was all like payphone to payphone. I had like, they had cell phones back then, but they were like those big fucking brick phones, like a big box and shit, and they were expensive as fuck too. But I had like the height of technology back then. I had the 1-800 beeper, so you could beat me. I had like the nationwide beeper, and dudes would have codes, so I knew who it was and all types of shit. Because I told people, don't call me from your home phone, call me from a fucking payphone. And I used to walk around. I had in my car. I always had like a bag of fucking quarters because sometimes I would have to go to a phone bank and I would have to call everybody. And I might spend fucking 2 hours at a fucking payphone. You know what I'm saying? Just calling motherfuckers, talking business and telling them, how much they got for me, what I'm bringing, what they need, when I'm going to be there, but even though a lot of times I would always lie when I was going to be there because that was kind of like my protection.
So with all this extra effort, making the job hard on the man, like what brought it down? What started to bring it down?
Yeah, so in '91, it was like in the summer. It was like dry as fuck, right? And like I say, I was trying. It was always in the fall. I was trying to build my money up, and I just went to Hawaii for 2 months too. Like I used to do that too. Like I would like get 100 pounds of weed and I would sell it all, and then I would fucking like fuck off sometimes for like a month or two. So this time, just to kind of keep my name out of everybody's mouth and not be around in case there was an investigation or, people were snitching on people like crazy then. So, I kind of go underground. So I went to Hawaii for 2 months and I blew like a lot of money. So I came back like in, July of '91 and I couldn't get any weed. So I just basically flooded fucking Northern Virginia with fucking acid, dude. Cause all my homies they were all back from college and I'm hitting them off like, yeah, I'm hitting them off like they're at college. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, I flooded the whole motherfucking area. And, then they had there was this field party, like out in Clifton, right? I think it was like right in July or something like this. And this young kid, like the cops came to bust the party and this young kid was running through the woods naked and the fucking cop chased him and tackled him. He pulled out the cop's gun and he shot the cop in the arm. So once that happened, like once you draw fucking blood from a motherfucking law enforcement, I mean, they had like the LSD witch hunt. So they started busting everybody. They found out where that acid came from. And it came from me, but it was like 7 people removed from me. But it was just, I mean, Northern Virginia, man, Fairfax, that area, it's all like basically upper middle class kids, you know, when they started talking about 10 to life, you know, it was just like dominoes, dude. And then, like I said, nobody knew my last name, but everybody knew Seth. So people kept saying Seth, Seth, Seth. So the DEA keeps hearing about this guy, Seth. And then finally, you know, they figured out, you know, who I was. And they actually set me up in a state case first in a sting through one of my friends who they busted and became an informant, you know, but that didn't work because I didn't take any drugs and money, but they still arrested me. You know, and they found another guy that was holding 110 sheets of acid for me. Like he fucking snitched and he said he had it. And then that's like when they started taking the case federal, you know, and then like September 91, that's when I got the federal case. And then, yeah, and then I was, that was like fucked up because I was like looking at, you know, they were talking about 20 to life. Well, actually first they were talking about 70 to life. You know, and then they were talking about if I take a, you know, plea bargain or whatever, 20 live. And then they were talking about like if I could cooperate. But I was always the type of dude, right? I was like, I don't know, whatever happens to me, it happens to me. You know what I'm saying? I got to look myself in the mirror every day. So I can't be like, you know, I'm not going to put somebody else, give them my situation to try to get out of it. You know, because I mean, I could have fucking set up motherfuckers from Cali, easy, man. I had dudes, you know, my word was good, you know, my money was good. And I had a good reputation. I could have did anything, but you know, I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to go to prison either. So that's when I made my little plan that, you know, I was going to take the fuck off.
So, you know, that's what's crazy because I think people now like over weed and acid to get 20 to life is just insanity. You know what I mean? Like, and at that time, that's real. So, and that's how they work, man. They want you to either cooperate and snitch or take a plea. And a plea from 70 to life to 20 to life is fucking ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not shit. It's not shit.
And
yeah.
So what happened there? Because it's at that point. So how did it happen? They gave you they kind of told you that was going to be kind of the offer, and then you just kind of bounced.
Yeah, man. I took the fuck off. So what I did is I always remembered I was always a big sports fan, you know, and back then it was like newspapers. So I would always like every day I'd get the newspaper and I'd go right to the sports section, but the Metro section was right before the sports section. So sometimes I would like open up to the Metro section and I would catch the headlines. And I remember at Great Falls, right? Great Falls in Northern Virginia, it's like a national park and the Potomac River runs through. You know, there was always people like they were committing suicide there. So I don't know why this like stuck in my head, right? So I remember like when I'm like, man, I'm like, I got to get the fuck out of here, right? I'm like, I'm not snitching on nobody. I'm not going to fucking go to jail for fucking 20 life. I'm like, this is some bullshit. I had a little bit of money. So I was like, man, let me get the fuck out of here. And plus, like I said, I was, you know, I always tell people I would never consider myself a criminal. I was an outlaw. You know, I broke laws that I thought were wrong. And, you know, like if I thought somebody was coming after me unjustly, yeah, of course I'm going to fucking run, you know, especially you can't win a battle against the United States government. So I started making this plan, right? I was like, okay, if Seth Ferranti disappears, you know, if Seth Ferranti is declared dead, you know, then there's no case, you know, and I can go on with my life. I can, you know, get another identity or whatever, you know, and be whoever I want. And then Seth Ferranti's dead, the case goes away. So I made this plan to fake my suicide, you know, because I remember people were always committing suicide at Great Falls. And so I staged it like right on the banks of the Potomac. And it was like there's like class 5 rapids, right? You know, like the professional kayakers go there, you know, but it's like like extremely dangerous because it's a bunch of rocks and it's like real fucking heavy rushing water. So if you jump in, you're either going to hit the rocks and die or you're going to fucking drown because you can't swim. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stage my suicide here. So I made the whole plan and I did it. You know, I said all the stuff there and yeah, I took off, man, and I went to California. And you know, I thought at first, you know, the Washington Post, you know, because then I was in California, I was in LA and I was going down to the newsstands every day, you know, and they had all the newspapers from, you know, all around the, you know, all the big cities. And I was buying the Washington Post every day. And at first it said like, you know, LSD or Fairfax LSD kingpin, you know, commit suicide. And I was like, fuck yeah, man, my fucking plan worked, you know, but this like elation, you know, this feeling of, you know, invulnerability or, you know, being immortal or whatever, it only lasted like 2 weeks because within 2 weeks, you know, the park rangers dragged the river, right? So in 2 weeks, you know, I found out they said, you know, the prosecutors, you know, declared my suicide a hoax, right? And I was reading the article. I was like, how the fuck they declared a hoax? and I found out I fucking I staged a suicide on the wrong side of the dam. You know what I'm saying? So there was like a dam, like a mile down, so they dragged the river. They always found the bodies there. They didn't find my body, so they said it was a hoax. So, whatever. I was only like 20, so I made that one mistake. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wrong side of the fucking dam, a little blunder. The plan was perfect, except for that one little fact.
I think it's interesting too. I heard you talk about, how you changed your identity and how, you could go into these little bookstores, little magazine shops, and they would have the little pamphlets on how to do all kinds of scams and identity thefts. And
yeah.
The same stores actually had like Iceberg Slim novels and Donald Goines paperbacks, and so it's like it's really it's pre-internet, before the internet, but if you went to the right places, you could get some pretty good information right off.
Yeah, it was a subversive bookstore. So I found this out, and I started getting these different books when I became a fugitive, and I read like 25 books on like how to change your identity and how to do it, and then I just kind of made my own plan. And like one of the most famous books that you would see at these bookstores was like the one where they told how to fucking make meth, like the meth cookbook or whatever.
Anarchist cookbook.
Yeah. Because that exploded like pre-internet. No, I think when they actually went on the internet in '96, that's when we had the big meth explosion. But yeah, I got all these subversive books, man, and I read all this stuff, and I was going right to the DMVs, man, and I was getting like real licenses in different names. I would comb through the obituaries, and I would find like a person born in one state and died in another state, like under the age of 5. And then, from the obituary, I would have enough information to get the death certificate. And then from the death certificate and the obituary, I would have enough information to get the birth certificate. Once I had the birth certificate, I was home free. Because you can verify your social security number just like with a W-2 form, and you can go to any business wholesale supply company and buy a box of W-2 forms. So you just need to learn how the codes go, like what states, because the first 3 numbers of Social Security is like the state it's issued. The second set of numbers is like the year, but it might not be like if you got it in 70, the number might be like 32, but there was a code to it, and the last 4 are random. So once you found out like the formula, it was like really easy, to do that. Yeah, so that's what I did, dude. I had like when I was a fugitive for 2 years. I probably had like 25 different IDs. I had like 4 passports, and my whole idea when I was a fugitive, I was like, I started selling weed again because I was out in LA for a little bit. About 6 months, and I kind of spent like whatever 25, 30 grand, and then I was like, man, because I was still living like I was a drug dealer, and I didn't have any money coming in. So then I ended up back in Texas, hooked up with my old Mexican weed dealer, and I started running weed from Dallas, Texas, up to St. Louis, Missouri. And I had like another little 10, 11th month run, and where I was making pretty good money. But again, I was like, I put a certain dollar amount. I was like, I'm gonna make $250K, and then I'm gonna fuck off. I'm gonna go to fucking Europe, and I'm gonna go find an identity over there, because I lived in England when I was a teenager, so. I had friends over there. I knew what it was about. I could move around. So that was kind of my idea, but I never got to that 250K mark. And then it's like anything. Once you start getting into something, you're making money. And, with me, it was more about the lifestyle a lot of times than the drugs, because that's what I craved. I craved, being that guy that the women wanted. I craved being that guy, that had the means and the money and could make shit happen and do what I want. That was like who I saw myself as. So, when I got that, you kind of get lackadaisical, and you kind of, rock yourself to sleep. It's like, oh, I'm doing good, and then, eventually the fucking hammer came down and they got me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is like being on the lam for 2 years at a certain point, did you start like, I'm sure the first couple months you're probably a little more worried, a little more paranoid about things, but at a certain point, did you just kind of like stop feeling more comfortable or like not as worried about things, especially back then when there wasn't as much computers or social media or, video surveillance everywhere, things like that?
Yeah, I feel like it took me a while, but, I kind of got my mojo back, and, it's still at the same. I mean, I was cool, but at the same time, it was, it was like nerve wracking in a way. But I didn't show that. Of course, that's like all inside. Because I would always, every time I went out, I would have like a different ID, and I would have to quiz myself. I'd have to be like, okay, what's my name? What's my social? What's my address? and I would have that license, so I would have to become that person, and I had all these different IDs that had the first name Christopher, right? So it was like Christopher Maple, Christopher Birchfield, and then everybody called me Christopher Haas, because when I was up in St. Louis doing my thing, I'd been going down to Texas, and I acted like I was from Texas. And back in Texas back then, like they used to call everybody Captain Haas. Like in the late 80s, early 90s, they'd be like, "What's up, Captain? What's up, Haas?" So when I went up to St. Louis, I put on like my little fake Texas accent, and I'd be like, "Yeah, what's up, Haas?" So everybody called me Christopher Haas.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew my last name.
Sure.
But then boom, I got busted. Because I'm trying to sell weed. It's still the height of the war on drugs, man. At that time, if you're selling drugs continuously, there was no way you're not going to get busted, because of so many informants or snitches. And eventually, I got busted. I ended up, people started snitching on me. They fucking found me. I had no idea though. I was top 15 U.S. Marshals list, so I had no fucking idea. And still to this day, I'm like, dude, like I was a first time nonviolent offender. Like, how did I become top 15 U.S. Marshals list? That's like equivalent to like the FBI's top 10 most wanted.
Yeah. When you
like U.S. Marshals?
Were you like one of the youngest to be on that list?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I was, because I was only 20, man. So I was a fugitive from 20 to 22. And I was amazed when I got caught. Eventually I got caught in St. Louis. And they took me to like, the U.S. Marshals, like the Federal Detention Center, and the U.S. Marshals, like they were coming to me and they had my wanted poster and they like wanted me to sign it. And they do shit like, "Hey man, if you sign this, like I'll give you a Coke." So I was like, okay, whatever. And I had no clue, until like as I, started going through all the court process, and I hear the prosecutor say, "Oh, he's top 15." And I was like, what? I was like, how the fuck am I top 15? It's just fucking crazy. The way that they made, at that time and place, the way they made, like drug dealers were like public enemy number one, like worse than murderers and rapists and everything. It was insane when you think about it.
Yeah. So did they ever give you reason why you like, like you said, because you're a nonviolent offender, like why they put you on the top 15? Did they ever give you like this is why you're top 15? Like.
Yeah, I figured it out finally, but it took me a long time. So I remember when I first got caught and they were extraditing me back. Like one of the U.S. Marshals was kind of looking at my paperwork, and he was looking at me, and he was like, "Who the fuck did you piss off?" Right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't. Still at that time, I didn't know. It wasn't until I was in prison like 7 or 8 years, and I had done all the Freedom of Information Acts, and I was fighting my case and fighting appeals, and I was getting more documentation, and I was getting all the stuff from like all the DEA, the U.S. Marshal reports and stuff like that. And even though they redact a lot of shit and they black out a lot of shit, I still pieced it together. So what I figured out was there was this dude, his name was Henry Hudson, and he was the assistant prosecutor, federal prosecutor in Northern Virginia at the time of my case. Like he was second in charge of that office, Northern Virginia, right? And so when I became a fugitive, all of a sudden he shifted to become the head of the Eastern District of Virginia U.S. Marshal's office. And so he was the one who did all the fucking paperwork. I guess he felt like I was like a black mark on his record, because I was like the young suburban kid that was supposed to fucking make them a bunch of cases. And I basically told him, "Fuck you." And I took off.
Yeah. You're the one that got away from him. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the one. And it's funny now because this same dude I'm talking about, he's like a Fourth Circuit appeals court judge, and that just goes out to show like how fucked up the war on drugs is. Because look, it's not about right and wrong. It's not about justice. You call the Justice Department, dude. It's not about any of that. All these people are concerned about is winning cases and getting news headlines, because that's how they get promoted. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. Everybody knows Rudy Giuliani. You know how Rudy Giuliani made his name? By busting fucking Gotti and being in all the fucking papers. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So if you think about our criminal justice system, it's not like the fairest or, the smartest or the most intelligent people that get promoted and get the headlines and it's usually like the most cutthroat, vicious people that cut all the fucking corners to win a fucking case.
Yeah.
At all costs. So it just shows you our whole criminal justice system and our political system. It just shows you, how fucked up it is in a lot of ways.
Yeah, man. So
two sides of the same coin,
So they catch you when you were 22, and then where did they send you?
So I got extradited back to Virginia. I got sentenced. Like they gave me 292 months at first, but then they indicted me on another 4-count indictment. You know, for like back then they didn't have identity theft, right? So I got like I got like a fucking they just got me like a mail fraud. You know, because I was using the U.S. mail to fucking get fake ID.
Yeah.
You know, and then they gave me the fraudulent use ID. It wasn't mail fraud, fraudulent use ID. And then, you know, like they charged me for like taking off. And so then I pled guilty to that and like 2 counts, the mail fraud and fraudulent use ID. And they gave me like 12 more months, but they didn't run it, you know, concurrent. They ran that shit consecutive. So then I went from like 292 months, which is like 24 years and something, to 304 months, which is like 25 years, 4 months. And then, then they sent me into the feds. You know, I started out at a medium high security prison, SCI Manchester, in the foothills of Kentucky, brand new prison. And then for like all through the 90s, like Clinton built so many fucking prisons, dude. I opened up SCI Manchester. I opened up SCI Beckley in West Virginia. I opened up SCI Gilmer in West Virginia. And I did like 12 years in medium highs. And like the medium highs, you know, there's one level higher. They're like a level 3, basically, you know, like with a USP, that's like a high, that's like a level 4. And then like a Supermax is a level 5, you know, and a Lowe's level 2 and a you know, camp is like a level 1. So I did 12 years in like a level 3, which they used to call them gladiator schools, you know, where basically like you got to fight. If you don't fight, you know, you're going to be fucking, you know, you're going to be best bringing somebody all your commissary, doing their laundry or making their bed. Worse, you're going to be getting fucking anally fucking raped.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's just how it goes. So, you know, I started out in the gladiator schools, but like I said, I played sports. I was always real athletic, and you know, I started hitting the weight, so I bulked up because I was probably like 175, 185 when I went in, and you know, I bulked up to about 225. You know, after a couple of years. So, you know, and like I say, you know, I don't claim to be a tough guy by any means. You know, I always try to avoid a fight if possible, but you know, whatever. I mean, it comes down to it. I'll fight if I got to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and if you fight, you get, even if you lose, if you fight, you get respect. You know what I'm saying? And and so, you know, I did 12 years in gladiator schools, played a lot of sports, and you know, so I knew a lot of people. Like I fuck with everybody. I fuck with you know, of course, fuck with the white boy because in there your flag is your skin color. But you know, I played sports, so I fuck with the Mexicans. I fuck with the blacks, and I kind of became like a diplomat. I became like a person. Like if some white boy in this unit like got his shoes stolen, I was like the dude that could go get him back. So there was like, you know, because if I didn't get him back and they find out who did it, then it might be, you know, some violence, and then there might be a race war or any type of shit. And then there, you know, you got to get permission. You're not supposed to lay hands on another race without permission. Like that's like taboo because they know it could, you know, lead to a big fucking race war and a lockdown. And in prison, you know, dudes are just trying to hustle. Everybody got side hustle. You know, everybody, they're doing whatever. So, you know, dudes don't like lockdowns. The smartest dudes that are running the prison, they try to keep the violence to a minimum. You know, but when it's your own race, I mean, you know, whatever, they'll take you in the cell and beat the fuck out of you and then make you stay in your cell for 2 weeks. The same dudes who beat the fuck out of you will bring you food for 2 weeks so you don't go out so nobody will see the marks. You know, because if the cops see the marks, then they're going to fucking lock that person up and have an investigation. You know, and then that person might snitch or whatever. So, you know, that was the way shit went down. You know, everything was, you were disciplined within your own race. So I did like 12 years in that environment. And really, I tell people a lot, like, because I was 22, you know, and I was from the suburbs, and, you know, I was probably a little entitled, maybe a little spoiled. And really, like, I became a man, you know, behind those fences, you know, that 12 years, you know, I became a man. Like, I saw what was what, you know, and I learned how to walk the walk, talk the talk, and I learned how to back it up. You know, and then after that 12 years, my last 9 years, I did in Lowe's, you know. So once I went to the Lowe's, it was like basically like a cakewalk, you know, because once you got like a decade in and you're coming down and you already got, you know, it's weird in prison because in prison, it's like those years are like stripes on your arm, you know, like you're in the military. So like once you get like a decade or like 12, 14, 15 years, it's like you got these fucking stripes, you know, and like motherfuckers look up to you, you know, and then, so once I got in the Low, it was just like, whatever. Like I would help. I would always try to help out the white boys. Because that was my race. So, because you had a lot of young dumb dudes. So I would try to keep them out of trouble. And I had pretty good negotiating, and I was pretty good communicating with people. So yeah, but the after the 12 years in the media, those were pretty. They were pretty tame.
Pretty insane that they sent a 22-year-old kid on nonviolent offense to like medium to high security prison for 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, that was, they did it because I was a fugitive, so that like jacked my level up.
Sure, yeah.
Because they said I was an escape risk.
Yeah,
that's why. Look, I never went to a camp because I was an escape risk. Yep. That stayed in my jacket for 21 years. They would never let me go to a camp, even though like in prison, like I got some shots here and there. And I got some fights here and there, but I never got, I wasn't like a troublemaker. I was never, the biggest thing that got me in trouble in prison is when I started writing, because by the time I went to the lows, that's when, I basically started my writing career.
And, that's what I wanted to talk about. So like in this environment, it sounds like you learned how to handle yourself and live in federal prison. Had you written before? Did you have any creative processes you were into? Like what led you to?
I played guitar and I sung and I wrote songs, and then like I say, from like probably like in my early teens too, like I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I would always be like the dungeon master, and I would take those modules and then I would create like all these worlds, off the modules, so I had that creative stuff there. And then kind of in high school, kind of from like the writing songs and the lyrics and stuff, I started doing a lot of poetry. Like I was a big fan of like Jim Morrison, Henry Rollins, so I kind of emulated them. I would write girls poetry. I was like the dude in high school, like other dudes would come to and be like, can you write a poem, for this girl, like they're trying to like seduce her or whatever. And I would do shit like that. And I would do it, for my own conquest and girls and stuff like that. So yeah, it was always kind of there. And I even had some ideas when I was younger. A couple of times I had started to write books, but, it never went anywhere. Like I thought at one time, like I was going to write the Great American, suburban angst drug novel, but I never did it. It was always like, I was started and then, never. But so when I finally went to prison, I had time for that stuff. But really in prison, what I did, like this is what I did. I played sports and I stayed in the law library. That's basically how I did my time. Played sports, worked out, stayed in the law library. And in the law library, like I got 3 college degrees. So I got an associate's degree, I got a bachelor's degree, and I got a master's degree, all through correspondence. Not that the prison paid for, that my parents paid for. When I first went in, they had like they had college courses. So probably like my first maybe 24 credits were through a prison program. But then in '94 they did away with the Pell Grants. So when they did that, like they didn't have any money because the college instructors, like when I was in SEI Manchester, they used to have college professors come in from Eastern Kentucky University. So, that was kind of my first experience. And, but then I wanted to continue that. So yeah, I earned all those degrees. I did that because like my family, like education is really important. Like my dad had a master's degree, my mom, my little brother eventually got one, my sister. So, when I was in prison, I kind of did that. And plus I destroyed the relationship with my parents, through all that. So kind of doing the education and the college thing and sending them my grades, I reestablished that relationship and built up some trust, but at the same time, me being in the law library all the time, and then all the sports I played, like I knew all the black dudes, I knew all the Spanish dudes, everybody, like, because everybody in there, the administration and the counselors, the case managers, and the cops are always fucking people over. So people are always, they call them administrative remedies or grievances. So people always want to file stuff like on the institutional staff, and it always has to be typed up because they try to make it real hard. Like you can't handwrite it, right? So I was always in there typing up college papers. So people started bringing, they'd be like, hey man, like dudes I played sports with, I didn't care, black, white, Spanish. They'd be like, can you type this up for me? And I'd be like, yeah. So then after a couple of years of just typing shit up, I got where I could write these things really well. So then dudes started coming to me, so I was doing legal work, but I wasn't doing legal work for the courts. I was doing like legal work, like administrative remedies and grievances for the institution. So I got so good, like that I got they had to pay me $25 just to talk to me.
Like a jailhouse lawyer, basically.
Yeah. Except for like institutional stuff, getting people transferred, or people would get shot and they get their commissary, their phone and their visits taken away. So I try to fight it. I'd read all the regulations and try to find a loophole so I could get people, get them their privileges back. Yeah. And so this kind of like over the years, this really helped me for my writing because over the years I built up a lot of trust with a lot of different people. So then, towards the end of the 90s, the beginning of 2000s, when I decided that I want to start writing, then, like I say, I wrote a lot about prison gangs and prison life, but the majority of my books were written about African-American drug lords, because when I first got locked up in the 90s, like I'm in the feds on the East Coast, dude. So it's like fucking, like all the mafia dudes are there. And I would find out about these dudes and I would call my mom and be like, oh, send me a book about these dudes. So she'd send me the book. And then there were all these Colombian cartel cocaine kingpins. And I'd call my mom and I'd be like, hey, so-and-so's here, man. Look for a book about this dude. They send me the book. And then like in the mid 90s, like when the gangster rap started blowing up, and I would hear all these names and they'd be like, oh yeah, that dude's on fucking B Block. And so I'd call my mom and I'd be like, try to find a book on this dude. And there was no books, she might be able to find some articles, maybe some magazine articles or something. So, that's when I got the idea. I was like, you know what, I'm going to start, writing books about these dudes. And, I would just approach them and I had already built up a lot of trust, through doing all this administrative remedy so that they would actually trust me and like let me interview them and write their story.
I mean, yeah, I find this totally fascinating, man. And like you said, the people whose stories you wrote are like, if you know anything about criminal culture, these are all like the main guys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it was crazy. It was crazy too because, like, look, dude, like, think about this. I'm in fucking prison, and I was a fucking white dude writing about the African. Like, that's like unheard of, right? I always tell people, like, right? Because I used to check with people, like, I write stuff and I'd let them read it, right? Because I had no room to, like, misquote people. Like, you hear it all the time, like, in the news. Oh, they misquoted me. Like, think if I misquoted somebody, especially as a white dude writing about African American dudes. Think if I misquoted those motherfuckers. What would happen to me? Yeah, and it was funny on the flip side, too, because I'm writing these books. So then, like I said, I was never in the gangs. Like I'm Italian anyhow. So if I used to sit at the Italian table. I used to hang out with the mobster. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not a mobster, but I got a fucking Italian last name, so they like embrace me, right? But the white gang members, like Aryan Brotherhood, associates or fucking like Dirty White Boys, Aryan Circle, all these white gangs, they used to come to me, right? And they'd be like, yo, man, like, why are you writing about the black dudes? Like, what's up with that? Like they try to tell me, like, you can't do that, or that's not cool or whatever. And I would tell them straight up. I'd be like, check this out, bro. I'd be like, when you guys bring that fucking heroin in or that fucking weed in, I go, you sell it to whoever, right? And they're like, yeah, money's green, motherfucker. And I'd be like, all right, bro, I make money off this shit. Money's green, motherfucker. As soon as I told them that, dude, they'd be like, they didn't have nowhere to go. You know what I'm saying? Because I flipped it on them. But yeah, they did try to press me at a couple of these institutions, man. Like the Aryan dudes, they would come up to me and try to press me like that. But once I told them what it is, like I'm saying, then they'd be cool. And then some of them even wanted me to write about them.
Yeah. I mean, around this time, I came across that Feds magazine. Now, did you write for them?
Yeah, I did a ton of stuff for Feds. Yeah.
I think it's,
I started writing for Don Diva and Feds. Yeah, so I started Don Diva and Feds first, and then eventually that led to me writing for Vice because there was an editor from Vice in the early 2000s named Jesse Pearson, and he used to love those magazines, and he found me, and then he fucking wrote me in prison, and he's like, man, I want you to do a column for Vice magazine, and I didn't know what the fuck Vice magazine was. I was like, okay, whatever, man. I like Don Diva and Feds because that got me the respect in there. Yeah. Those were like the Outlaw Bibles. That's what everybody was reading in there. So I didn't know what Vice was, but then the dude told me, he's like, man, I'll pay you fucking $350 a fucking piece. Like basically he's gonna give me $350 a month. He wants me to do a column. And that got my attention. I was like, because that was more than I was getting paid for the other magazines. So I was like, fuck it.
That blew my mind because I was reading those articles that you were writing at the time, and it was I don't know, it just really stood out to me. I think I heard at one point you were talking about how like you kind of related these, the urban black crime stories to like Billy the Kid and like old Dimeback westerns and things like that.
Yeah. Because I was really into that. So, I mean, I was an avid reader, especially in prison. I mean, you got tons of time in prison, so I used to read, and I love all the outlaw stuff, all the gangster stuff. So those were all the books I read. And when I started reading about some of these African American drug lords or these gangsters or thugs, I was just like, man, like they had that mystique, like the street lore, man. And I always tell people like what I wrote like what they talk about like in the TV room, like what they talk about like in the cells. Like I write about the shit like you can't get anywhere else, but still I had to be careful because I had to keep that shit all within the death before dishonor code because I wasn't trying to put cases on anybody. You see like a lot of mainstream media, like, they're always speculating, trying to put cases on people. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, motherfuckers don't like that. But I don't care if you did everything they said or you didn't do everything they're saying. Let law enforcement do their fucking job. You don't got to be a writer. You're an investigative journalist. You're trying to put cases on motherfuckers. So, especially, I mean, I didn't want to do that anyhow, but especially in there, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because, it could have, someone could have fucking came and shaped me. So, like I said, I kept everything within the code, but I told these stories in the right way. But like I said, I told the stories that the mainstream media couldn't tell. And also, the feds and the newspapers, they always want to paint these people like, oh, it's all this, it's all this. I would humanize these people, man, because it's always not black and white. And I don't mean like by race. I'm like in anything in life. In life, there's a lot of gray area, man.
Yeah.
You can be a good dude and somebody puts you in a situation and you got to fuck them up or kill them. You might not want to, but if it's you or him, what the fuck you going to do?
Absolutely.
You got to do what you got to do. So I'm saying there's a lot of gray areas, man. And you got to look at the whole story and, whatever. Yeah, these dudes, they did put themselves in that life. But, a lot of these dudes, they were honorable dudes, man. They were like honorable, classy dudes. Yeah, but at the same time, they were gangsters. So, gangsters are going to do what gangsters do when it comes down to it.
That's a hell of a crash course. I mean, at this point, like, like listening to you tell this now, it's almost like you just like were destined to be in this position of writing about these things. And also it's like, I talked about Iceberg Slim and Donald Boyd. It's like, I mean, these books are like, this is like the next chronological 90s era.
I discovered those books. I discovered those books in prison, man. I read them all. I love those books. You know what I'm saying? Just like because they're written in that like that street vernacular, and like I say, you get a little of that in rap, but then you read these books, man. It just takes you into like like, dude, like I can honestly say, like in this. I put a lot of this in my work now, especially like my documentaries and a lot of the writing I've done. I just think like how I grew up, kind of middle class America, kind of sheltered. Like you look at some of these people in these poverty stricken areas, how they grow up, man. And these black and brown people and how they're forced to come up and the decisions they have to make, dude. And that's fucked up, dude. And we talk about America the Great and America the, and look, at the end of the day, and I learned this too in prison. So what they do in prison is they try to divide you by race. It's a scarcity of resources, and they divide you by race to fight over those resources. That's how they maintain control. And once you've been in prison, you see that, you can see it's exactly the same shit out here.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, we're all people. I don't care where you're from, what you look like, what color you are, what language. We're all people. We can all find a common ground. It's just making the effort to get to know one another and getting rid of those stereotypes. Because, there's a lot of stereotypes, man, that get thrown around in the media, in movies, in private conversations. So, some of them justified, some of them not justified. But, I mean, you can't really stereotype people. I mean, because I feel like that with me. Like, I'm an ex-con, and I came out here and all this stuff I'm doing. Even in prison, when I started writing, like, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. My whole life I've been told that I can't do this, I can't do that. I can't be a writer while I'm in prison. I can't be a filmmaker because I'm an ex-con. But I'm always the time. I'm challenging the stereotypes. I'm like, man, fuck you. I can do what I want. As long as I have a will and I have a way and I'm ready to put in the work, and I have the mind to organize that stuff and the vision that other people are going to believe in, then I can do it. So I've always been that type of person.
And on top of that, there's so many people, like so many production companies making TV shows about, counterculture or even like prison world or like gang culture, this and that. And you're going to be able to come at things with a perspective and authenticity that no one else is going to be able to add to that from doing the time and being in there and like hanging with these guys. You know what I mean? Like you get those TV shows like Gangland and things like that. And you can tell some of it is just kind of like they don't know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? And
they don't know, and people lie to them and bullshit them, and
sure,
and they
of
believe
course.
it. Yeah, that's why I've kind of like these last couple of years, I've kind of fashioned myself, as like the quote unquote outlaw filmmaker, because I don't need anybody to tell my story. I don't have to be a consultant on a film. I can run the project. I can make the film. I can write it. I can direct it. I can produce it. Usually, so they have these writers and directors, and then they might tell somebody's story, or they get them to be a consultant. But I can do all that. I don't need none of that. So I feel like what I'm doing and who I am is kind of like some next level shit that really a lot of people aren't even doing. They I can't think of hardly any prominent ex-con writer directors. I mean, I'm sure there's some, but it's very, very few and far between.
I mean, yeah. Did you meet when you were locked up? Did you come across like any other cats that were in similar circumstance to you that were like, with the LSD thing and stuff like that, like other white cats?
Yeah. No, it's very rare. I mean, if you got like 3 dudes with LSD cases on the compound, like that's a lot. Yeah. But we all knew about each other, because we all take, there's always a dead connection. So, prison is like a fishbowl, right? So it's like, boom, if somebody's like no good or if somebody's a snitch, like that word gets passed around. So we know who we are. We know where we're at. We know who's hot. We know who's not hot. Like, like 2 of the dudes that I fuck with now that I'm doing projects with that are in my Psychedelic Revolution project, as interviewees and as producers, Leonard Picard and Tim Tyler. I never met them in prison, but I knew who they were in prison. Me and Leonard used to write. Then me and Tim started writing, when I found out about his case. So we never met in person until we got on the street. But like both these dudes, I was writing these dudes since like the mid 2000s, since like 2005, and both those dudes had life. Like they thought they were never getting out. And then Tim Tyler got the pardon from Obama in 2018. And then Leonard Picard got out, compassionate release because of the COVID, just like, about 18 months ago. So, we know about each other inside, but it's like, we're so few and far between, we don't, it's not like we're all on the same compound together.
So this documentary you're working on, what's LSD? What's it called again?
Well, it's called The Psychedelic Revolution, the secret history of LSD trade.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a 3-part. It's going to be a 3-part, like a trilogy series, like three pretty much standalone docs. I'm going to put them out one at a time. Each one's going to be 75 minutes. The first one is called The Genesis. It's like part 1, The Genesis. So it goes all the way back to when Albert Hoffman, first synthesized LSD, in 1943 and took the first, recorded LSD trip, April 19th, 1943. Then it goes all the way into the 60s, like with the Merry Pranksters, Timothy Leary. Then it goes into the dead stuff, with Owsley, the Summer of Love. And then the first episode is going to end like in, 1971, Owsley gets busted, goes to jail. And that's when Richard Nixon, kind of starts, the quote unquote war on drugs. So then the second part 2 is going to be called The War on Drugs. And that's going to go from when the war on drugs started with Nixon, but it's really going to concentrate in the 80s and the 90s, like when the DA started going on the lot. It's going to have the Wrecking Crew stuff, and it's going to have the cases like, Timothy Tyler, Leonard Picard, and a whole bunch of other people. I interviewed a whole bunch of dudes, man, for that, and women too. They did like 15, 20, 25 years. So we're going to tell their story in the part 2, and we're going to show how like LSD kind of went underground for 50 years, and we lost a lot of research. We lost all the therapeutic, medicinal, and spiritual stuff. Because, when it first started out, LSD wasn't even legal until like 1966. So they were doing all these studies back then, but then, it got forced underground. And then part 3 is going to be called The Renaissance, and that's going to be like now. because now it's like psychedelics are kind of like the new cannabis, and everybody's trying to get in, and everybody's doing studies again, and kind of like everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. So what my series is about, my series, I got some of the scientists and the doctors and the people doing the clinical trials and stuff like that. But mostly my story is told from the outlaw view, because we want to be where we are today, where psychedelics are today, without all the contributions from the outlaws. And all the outlaws, we suffered. We suffered. We paid a price for what we believed in, for cannabis and for psychedelics. You know what I'm saying? If not for us, and especially like the elders, like people like Carolyn Mountain Girl Garcia, Ronnie Stanley, Leonard Picard, Mark McLeod. These are the people that they carried this culture, for forever. And some of them went to prison, some of them went to prison, but these have been the standard bearers of this whole counterculture, like what we call the counterculture in the 80s, which is now kind of going mainstream.
Yeah. What is, like, how is your perspective on things like how do you process, you went to jail for 21 years for things that now are becoming legalized. Like how does that hit you? You know what I mean? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. When I was 17, I knew what I was doing was right.
Yeah.
Those were my convictions. Those were my beliefs. So that's why I did. I sold drugs. I didn't sell drugs for money. Of course the money was nice, but I started getting into drugs and selling drugs because to me, those were the righteous drugs, as opposed to like bad or the hard drugs, like cocaine, heroin, meth, and now fentanyl. So, I went into this, I believed that there was medicinal, spiritual, and therapeutic value back then, but then it was weird because when I got busted and you get all that time and everybody tells you you're wrong, you're a drug dealer and you're doing the wrong thing and you're a drug addict, like everybody a drug dealer, you're a drug addict, so they try to brainwash you, and like as a young man getting that amount of time, that was really impactful on me. Like I had to really do a lot of soul searching and, I almost like for a while, like I gave into that shit. Like even my parents, like trying to put all that shit on me, like, oh, you were wrong. You're a drug addict, this and that, so it took me about 5 years in prison to kind of wrestle with that and come to grips. But then, after 5 years, I was back to how I was when I was 17 and 18 again. I was like, I was fucking right. So this whole time I thought I was right. So, now seeing everything as it's happened now, like before I got out, with the medical marijuana and, legalization and the psychedelics now I just feel like, I tell people now, like I say, I don't even tell them like I was a drug dealer. I say, yeah, I went to jail 21 years for being a cannabis and LSD activist.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's how I kind of see it now. Because I felt like I was right back then. Then I had a little doubt when they beat the fuck out of me and punched me down. And I second guessed myself. But then I came back around and now, like I say, I was a trendsetter. I sacrificed, for this culture. People like me and the people from this culture, that did all this stuff. We are the reason why this stuff is legal now. The people that made the sacrifices. And the people that did all these grassroots organizations on the outside, and the people that live these lifestyles. We are the reason why I don't take all credit for myself, but I played a part in that, but a lot of people did. And just because, even if you didn't go to prison, doesn't mean that you didn't play a part in that.
Sure. Yeah.
It's our culture. Now our culture is mainstream.
Yeah. How did you get into filmmaking? Did you get into filmmaking while you were in prison, or is that something skill like that you kind of picked up afterwards?
Well, I'd say probably when I had about 10 years left. So probably, like 2004, 2005, I've already started writing articles, and I'd already started writing the books. And to me, the next level or the evolution as a writer is that you write for films, you make films. That's what I saw. I saw that trajectory. You see a lot of people, they go from articles to books and then to films, if they're talented enough. So I kind of envisioned that, and then I took like my whole master's degree was all like on film stuff, like I wrote scripts, I studied film, so that was what I wanted to do, so I was already a writer and I was already getting paid for my writing and journalism. And I'd already put out, I put out 8 books while I was in prison. So when I got out, I was like, this is what I wanted to do. It took me a little longer. I thought I was going to be where I wanted to be, like within 2 years of being out. I was like super gung ho. So, it's taken me about 7 years to get to where I am now, but, I'm there, that was my vision, and like anything in life, man, I mean, you go through it. You know, you have ups and downs. You know, you second guess yourself. You doubt yourself. I've been through all that.
Yeah.
You know, I thought like maybe I should just give it up and fucking grow marijuana for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, but I just kept, I pursued that and I did it. And, you know, I was lucky enough to get on that White Boy production. And then, really when that went on, you know, that film came out in 2018 and it went on Stars.
Yeah.
And it really, you know, it was a good film. I believed in it wholeheartedly, but it didn't really blow up. It didn't go viral. You know, people saw it, but nobody really noticed. You know, didn't get any recognition. And then it was weird because it went on Netflix about a year ago in April, like at the end of the pandemic, and it just blew the fuck up, dude. It had like 20 million views in 2 months. It was like top 10 on the website, not for documentaries, for like everything, for like 2 weeks, and really like brought a lot of attention, you know, to me because I was a writer producer on that. And my other projects, and it's weird too because I always tell people like it was like the Tiger King effect.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was like the end of the pandemic. It went on there. People were looking for shit to watch, and they found it. And it's a good film. It's an awesome film. You know, and that's kind of the director of that. His name's Sean Reck. You know, I brought that story to him. You know, I was the Access dude. It was all based on my articles because I wrote a bunch of articles about White Boy Rick. You know, for Vice News, The Fix, all these different websites advocating for his release. You know, and you know, he took me under his wing, man, and he mentored me and he taught me, you know, I knew how to be a storyteller, but I didn't know how to make a film. And I definitely didn't know the business side of film. And he took me in that process and he taught me all that stuff on that film. And, you know, that's everything I'm applying now. You know, luckily, you know, it blew up on Netflix. It's weird how things happen because, you know, if it didn't blow up on Netflix, I still might, you know, be this guy, you know, a struggling filmmaker, you know, because films cost money, man. They take a lot of money. So, when that blew up, it put a lot of, you know, spotlight on everybody that was on that team. You know, most notably, you know, Sean Reck, it's his film. He's a director, his studio. But all the other people that made that happen, you know, that helped him make that magic, you know, put the spotlight on us. And then people started coming to me. Even people that I was like begging for money. I was begging for money before, you know, to develop ideas. You know, and they didn't want to give me the time of day. Then they started coming back to me. And now, yeah, everything's just been flowing, man. So I don't know. I kind of see it like I feel like karma, man. Because like for whatever reason, you know, I had bad luck. I got a lot of fucking time, you know. But like I say, I did it the right way. You know, I kept my mouth shut. I did my time. I didn't bring nobody else down. You know, I mean, it was a heavy burden to bear, but you know, I think I bared it pretty good. You know, and I came out the end. You know, a lot of people say like I don't look like a person who did 21 years in prison. I mean, that's a stereotype. So I don't know what a person who did 21 years in prison is supposed to look like. But like I say, I don't put any limits on myself. Like you know, even like I said in there, they said I can't write books. You know, I can't do this. You know, everybody's always telling me what I can and can't do, and I'm just like, fuck it. I manifest. I believe in positivity. I believe in saying what I'm going to do and then doing it. You know, I learned in prison. So many people in prison are so fucking negative, man. You know, and in the world, a lot of people are negative too. But in prison, it's just so intense because the majority, you know, over half the people are fucking thrive on negativity and chaos. And just being around that shit so long, I was just like, I'm like, you know what, man? I did what I had to do. You know, I carried it the way I had to carry it in there. But then, you know, when I got out, I'm like, you know, I'm going to change for the better. I'm going to get rid of all that negativity. I'm only going to focus on positive. Because in prison, it's pretty much like you step on somebody else's back to make yourself look bigger. And I know they do that in the real world too. But, you know, I'm the type of person, you know, I'd rather stand on my own merits, you know, than stand on somebody else's back to make myself look big. And that's a lot of stuff I learned in there, you know, just by watching.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to be like this. You know, I don't want to be the person that's going to hold on, you know, like, oh, I got 25 years. I'm just going to hold on to that forever. And it's going to affect my whole life. And I'm going to be a drug addict. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. And I'm never going to be able to get ahead. So, you know, I let that shit go. Whatever happens, happens, man. I mean, yeah, fucked up shit happens in life. You know, I got 25 years, but way fucked up more shit has happened to other people.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't compare, you know, what happened to me. I mean, there's way fucking worse things that happen, you know, to women, to children, all types of shit. You know what I'm saying? So we don't got to discuss all that. But, you know, if those people can get over that and move on, you know, why can't I get over fucking 25 years and get on with my life? So that's kind of how I look forward. I stay positive. And, you know, I get rid of any negativity. I don't want any negativity around me. And I try to I manifest, you know, like I put it out there. I say like, I'm going to do this. And then I make it happen. You know, that's how you got to do it. If you look at any successful or celebrities or even like rock stars, that's what they said, man. Like they said, like, I'm going to be up on that fucking stage with fucking a stadium full of people. That was their dream. That was their vision. And then they made it happen. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got all the journey and the work in between, you know, and you got to be responsible and show up and do all that stuff, you know, what fulfill your obligations. But, you know, I believe that's what it's about, man. A lot of people, we tend to limit ourselves in what we can or can't do, or the people around us, you know, limit us by saying, oh, you can't do that. It might even be our parents,
Yeah.
you know, talking about you can't do that. So, you know, I try to take everything from a blank slate, man, and just like, I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna broadcast it. I'm gonna put the team together. You know, I'm gonna get the people to believe in me, and I'm gonna do it. You know, for whatever reason, you know, I'm pretty good at that. You know, and this last year, I've been extremely successful. Not to say I'm where I want to be yet, because I mean, I have really big ideas. You know, I kind of, you know, I want to be like the next Quentin Tarantino for like this drug crime thing, like, you know, documentary TV shows, even movies, you know, so that's kind of like what I aspire to. That's my ambition. So like I say, I'm not there yet. I'm just starting out, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm on the right track. You know, from the outside looking in, a lot of people say, oh, you're doing so good. But I'm like, nah, I'm not where I want to be,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to keep going until I get there.
Absolutely. Do you have you know, I know a lot of stuff you do is based on reality, or documentary type stuff. Do you ever want to get into, cause you said you next Tarantino and stuff. What about like fiction and stuff, or like, you know, just storytelling? Is that something that you're looking at as well?
Yeah, no, I got scripts, man. I got scripts that I wrote in prison,
Yeah.
you know, that I want to get, but I'm trying to, you know, it's kind of like in this world, it's like, you know, entertainment. It's like show and prove, man. It's like anything. You got to go up, you know, one rung at the time. You know, I mean, there's always those people that are just going to jump right to the top, and, you know, more power to them.
Yeah.
But, you know, whatever it is, I'm not one of those type of people. I'm the type of person, I have to go like one step at a time. You know, I'm very methodical. You know, I like to learn. I like to, you know, my confidence comes with learning and doing stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I got to go through the process, and I got to go through the journey. Yeah. So that's the direction I'm going. I'm hoping in 2023 that, you know, I can start doing some indie features. You know, I got some cool, I got a prison script I wrote, you know, a vicious fucking prison script about gangs battling for the heroin trade in the prison, you know, and then I got like some suburban drug stuff, you know, that I wrote about, you know, some even, you know, biographical, you know, that I want to bring to the big screen or to a TV show. So that's where I'm heading. But like I say, I'm happy right now because the documentary projects don't cost as much. You know, when you get into those movies, I mean, those are like multi-million-dollar projects.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I got a lot of investors now. So it's kind of like, you know, it's like anything in business, man. Even if it's drugs, I see the investors like to connect. You know, so I always play the long game. You know, like a lot of dudes play the short game. Like they want to get drugs from the connect and then rip them off. You know, I would never do that, because if I give the connect his money back, he's going to give me more drugs so I can make more money, and it can go on forever. So I see these investors that invest in films the same way. To me, they're like the connect. So I'm going to get the money from them. I'm going to make my stuff. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm going to put it out to the world. And then, you know, I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to get their money back so they give me more money so I can make bigger things. Absolutely. You know, so to me, you know, whatever, I was a drug dealer, so I equate everything to that world, you know, and that's basically how I think it works. You know, it's proved, you know, pretty successful for me so far.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that sticks out is like, is having a vision and, you know, realizing it, you know what I'm saying? And, that's pretty amazing, man. You're definitely, like I said, you're paving a whole new lane here. You know, it's been done in the past, but yeah, I'm real excited to see what you're going to do. What about Tangled Roots? I've been interested to hear about that documentary you got going on.
Yeah, so Tangled Roots came about because I was doing stuff for Vice, and they flew me out to this big canvas event in the Emerald Triangle in like 2019, and I met this guy named John Casale, and he did Fed time. He did like 10 years for weed, and he's from like Humboldt County. He's from like Southern Humboldt, which was like, you know, I mean, so Southern Humboldt and Northern Mendocino. Those were the big weed spots that everybody, heard about, in the Emerald Triangle. So he's from like ground zero, of the cannabis game. And, and I met him, and he had a legal farm. He was growing weed for Willie Nelson. You know what I'm saying? He did his Fed time, and now he was out, and he was actually growing on the farm that he inherited from his mom, and his mom was like an outlaw grower. So, he's a legacy farmer. He's second generation legacy farmer. So, I kind of heard his story, man, and I was like, man, this dude is like on top of the fucking world, man. He fucking grows weed for Willie Nelson. I mean, how fucking cool is that? He got a legal farm. He did his time. He's from fucking, Southern Humboldt, like the spot in the Emerald Triangle. And, we kind of struck up a friendship, and we talked about doing different pieces. I was maybe going to write an article about his life story for Penthouse, or, maybe a Vice, but nothing really materialized. But we stayed friends, because I'm a cannabis dude. I'm a stoner. So, we stayed friends, and, I visited, and we kind of talked, and, we were both kind of sharing like our successes and failures, like over 2 years. And I came to find out that, it wasn't all good with him, like a lot of those farmers up there, like they were struggling, like the industry kind of came in and kind of co-opted the culture, which happens a lot in this country. And, they started making all these big farms down in Southern California and like, the Salinas area with these big greenhouses. And those dudes go on the side of the mountain, like in 10,000 square feet. They cannot fucking compete, so the price started fucking going down. So it was like shit that he used to get like $4,000 or $5,000 on the black market per pound was now like $500 a pound, so these dudes were like struggling. Right. And I started thinking about it. Right. And I was like, man, this fucking shit, it pisses me off. See, I gotta get pissed off. I'm like a passionate dude. I'm like a reason dude. Like, we made White Boy because I wanted to get White Boy Rick out of prison, because I thought it was fucked up that he fucking had to do 33 years in prison for, and he was they pimped him out as a teenage fucking informant, our own government, and then fucking threw him away like a piece of trash. You know what I'm saying? So, I thought that was fucked up, because how can you use like a 14, 15-year-old kid as a foreman, man? That's like fucking sick, man. Who would do that? They don't even know what the fucking informant is not. They're just playing a game. So, that's pissed me off. So then when I found out about the situation in the Emerald Triangle in Northern California, how all these farmers are like suffering, and how like a lot of them, they're going bankrupt. Like they can't even, they can't even pay their taxes, like they're going under. Like a lot of them, I think like almost 50-60% of them have went under. And, just started pissing me off. And from knowing Johnny, and Johnny's like a straight outlaw, dude. He's like, you don't got, he's like, like dudes, like, you don't got to do no contract with them. You know what I'm saying? It's like, like, some dudes, you don't got to put nothing on paper. If we got an agreement, it's an agreement. Your word is fucking bar. He's like one of those type of dudes. And he's also like one of the type of dudes, like he'll give you the shirt off his back. He's just one of those type of dudes, man. Like fucking, like golden. Dude is fucking golden, man. And his whole community fucking loves him, because he took that fucking 10 years, dude. He could have snitched on anybody. He took that 10 years for growing a plant and kept it fucking moving. So he's like a legend in fucking Humboldt, in the Emerald Triangle, man. He's like a fucking legend. So it pissed me off, man, that dudes like him and people from this culture were suffering. So that's how Tangled Roots came about. I was like, you know what? I'm like, dude, we're gonna make a film. We're gonna make it. First, it was just gonna be a doc, but then I had the doc idea, and then like when White Boy fucking blew up, it brought some investors, and then I got enough money where I can make it into a series. So it's gonna be a 4-part limited series. So it's gonna start with like the Back to the Landers. So these are like the hippies, from like the late 60s, early 70s. These were the people like that were down in hate, with the hippie movement. Yeah, and the dead, and they moved up there. And they moved up there to fuck off. They didn't move up there to grow weed. It just so happened that they smoked weed, so they didn't have any money. So they just started, had the Mexican seed, so they started growing weed, and the weed responded really good in that climate. Because that climate up there, it's kind of like Napa Valley and the grapes, right? That's why the weed is so good up there, because it's one of the only climates where at night it gets down to like 40 degrees, and during the day it gets over 100 degrees. Just like how the grapes, like Napa Valley and some places in France and stuff, it has a climate that the herb really, really likes and really responds good to. So the first episode is going to be like the Back to the Landers, like why they moved there, how they started growing weed. The second episode is going to be like in the 80s when they kind of blew up and they started supplying like 60% of the U.S.'s, domestic product, and then, then it's going to go into like the war on drugs and shit like that. And then the third part is going to go into like the Prop 215, like the medical stuff and the green rush and all that. And then the fourth episode is going to be like the Prop 64 and legalization and what they're dealing with now.
Nice.
It's definitely perfect timing for this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty wild, man.
This is a quick question.
Yeah.
Outside of career stuff, and we'll get back to that because that's fucking interesting shit. But I have a couple friends and a couple people I know that have done, over a couple of decades, went away as young, 18, 20 years old, came out as a man in their 40s. Doing that much time, going away kind of as a kid and coming out as a man, like in your 40s, like when you first got out, the world's changed so much now. The world changes so fast now. Everything is like progressing and like snowballing and fucking picking up. What was like the craziest thing to kind of grasp or get used to, like coming out? Because like 80s and 90s or early 2000s is definitely a different time. You know what I mean? Like what was the craziest shit that was like different in the world? Like when you get out, like what was the hardest shit to kind of grasp, or get around?
I mean, well, definitely the phones. I mean, I went in pre-internet, so I knew about the internet. And my wife used to print me stuff out, but just having like this little fucking computer that you use for everything, like maps and it's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
These phones we have. I remember back in the day, like you had to get a fucking map out, like when you're going places. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And you get lost all the time, or motherfuckers would give you direction. I still find that too. Like the people like my elders, like my parents, like they still try to give you direction. Because I'm just going to GPS with that.
Yeah.
You don't got to give me like they're like, oh, go down here, turn there, and I'm like, no, I'm just going to GPS. I don't need no fucking direction. But so that was like the biggest thing, the technology, But so I had to learn all that. And one thing that took me a while. It took me like a good 8-9 months to understand was I didn't understand the difference between cellular and Wi-Fi, and like the term how they say bandwidth.
Yeah.
So that took me a long time, because like, and it really has to do like, especially since I was doing like journalism stuff and I was doing pictures and they always want like the high res pictures, the big files. And like, big files you can't download on cellular because you don't have enough bandwidth. You need Wi-Fi. So that took me like a good 8-9 months to figure out because I was like, well, what's the difference? I mean, I can go on the web in cellular. I can go on the web in Wi-Fi. So just, and then the way like a lot of people, especially like a lot of younger people use it, like you try to tell them something and they say like, oh, I don't have the bandwidth for that. And I'd be thinking like, what, you don't want to listen to what the fuck I got to say? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I took it like an insult. Like I don't have the bandwidth, but that's what they meant. They're using it like, like the Wi-Fi cellular thing. Like they can't download all that shit. So that was like a weird thing I went through. It took me like a good 8-9 months to kind of understand all that shit.
Yeah. What about just like the state of like the world? Because culture in America has changed so much over the last few decades as well. Was that kind of like a shock for you coming out into this like new kind of world?
I just think it's like a softer kind of world, man. Me and my wife talk about it all the time. Like, like in the 80s, dude, like you went to a rock concert and there'll be like some teenagers like passed out drunk, just like laying there. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like think when you go to a concert, you don't see that nowadays. Yeah. You would never see that. It would be like some 14-year-old passed out drunk on alcohol, lying there for the whole concert until their friends come and get him at the end of the concert. And no security or nobody, medical people would fuck with them. Like, you don't see that now.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I think it's a kinder, gentler, more world. I think also, I think if people don't have the same convictions, or it's like people don't stand, like they're not as firm in their convictions or what they stand for. I even like this, like, remember, like I remember back in the 70s when I was growing up and even the 80s, like, if you saw a cop, going on the road, you flash your lights and tell the next person there's a cop.
Yeah.
Like hardly nobody does that, dude. Nobody does that.
I think they made it illegal too at one point. There used to be a speed traps, radar and shit. It's like, the truckers would always flip their lights.
Yeah, dude. So it's just a really different world, man. The way everything is now. I don't know. Maybe it's better. Maybe it's worse. I mean, I'm all about diversity. I'm all about inclusion. I think everybody should have their time at the table. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. Maybe it's better. I think kind of, I grew up in the 80s, so I had like, a lot of those rock star views. So, I mean, those are about kind of, especially concerning women. That's a little outdated now. and I can realize, but I mean, the 80s, I mean, all that stuff was cool, so that's how I grew up. But, now, you can look back and say, yeah, maybe that shit was fucked up, but I'm saying, so.
And do you feel not I don't want to say like a sense of urgency, but like, and I know you were productive while you were inside, but you're you're removed from the world for the mainstream world for a couple decades. Do you feel like you're going hard because you're trying to make up for that lost time, or is it like, I know you were being active and getting your career started in writing and stuff, but like, is that way you're coming out the gate hard with all like the film production stuff now? Like,
yeah, no, I do feel a sense of urgency. I want to put myself on the map. I want that recognition. I want my brand to be out there. So I'm 51. So I mean, the time doesn't stop. Time keeps going. I had 20 years that was taken away from me, and yeah, I did do a lot of stuff, but could I have done a lot more if I was out here? Yeah, but I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, definitely, I feel a sense of urgency, and like I tell people, look, I don't go out and party, dude. I'm in bed every night, like 8, 9. I don't go party. I fucking wake up at 5 or 6. I work. I like to. Me and my wife do a lot of different stuff. We go places. I do a lot of events, but like I don't go out and party. I love to smoke weed, but sometimes. I'll go sometimes. Like I just went 10 months. I didn't even smoke any weed, and that's like my drug of choice. Just because I got too much shit to do. I don't need to be fucking stoned all fucking day. Even though I mean, if I do get stoned all day, I can be a pretty productive stoner. I'm not saying that people that get stoned are not productive, but for me, I'm prolific. Like if I'm straight sober, I'm like prolific. If I'm getting stoned or relaxing, I'm still productive compared to most people. But, like I say, I feel that urgency that I have to be prolific, and I have to, kind of do what I want to do and get to where I want to be, man. Because, I'm not getting any younger. So, not like there's any timetable on anything. But, I'm going to keep working smart until I will get to where I want to be. And, who knows, man, if I got a lot of shit popping off and I got a couple million in the bank and I want to smoke rosin all day, maybe I'll do that, But until I get to that point, until I get, because that's my thing too, dude. I love the concentrates, dude. I love the fucking rosin, dude. The fucking, like the modern day hash. The modern day hash, I love it.
Yeah, the other day, yesterday I was smoking it, just fucking get like the full effect, and I'm like, man, this is like with those hash heat addicts, like in, you know what I'm talking, in India and shit. They're homeless. They're like in rags and shit. Like, I was like, I can see how they fucking do this. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So
definitely, because you can't.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can get lost in that. Anything if you do it too much is bad for you, man.
Yeah. Well,
no matter what it is.
And I know you talk to people but coming out, like even weed culture is so changed, right? Compared to when you went in, like the amount of different diversity of weed type products, was that kind of surprising to you? Like all the different concentrates? Or?
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it, man. Look, I'll tell you the story. So, I got out of the feds like January 2015 and I had like 8 years probation, but I changed my jurisdiction from Virginia to Missouri. So right when I got to Missouri, they were like, well, we don't get 8 years. We only get 5 years. So I lost 3 years right off the bat. And that was planned. I knew that.
Sure.
So I did that on purpose. Right. But then, I knew too, like after a year, you could apply to get off. Right. So, I kept my nose clean. I worked hard. I made money. So after a year, I got off probation, because on probation, like I was getting piss tested all the time. They get pissed. I got to drop whenever they say, they call my number. I got to come in and fucking drop it. They lock me back up. So, after I was out a year and I got off probation, and the first thing I did was I flew to Denver and I stayed with one of my buddies in Denver because that was like 2016 and Denver was like one of the only places that had recreational legal. A lot of places had medical, but I didn't have a medical card. So I went there, dude, and just going in the shops, man, for like a lifelong fucking stoner. Somebody that like grew up in this culture, man, this counterculture with psychedelics and fucking weed. Like going there, dude, it was just like so special to me, man. Going to the shops and they got all the fucking different and I was like a kid in a candy store,
sure.
So that was like fucking awesome to me, man. That was like especially coming out after doing 21 years in prison for weed and LSD, and now I'm fucking off probation and I'm walking into the fucking dispensaries in Denver and fucking buying shit, man. That was real special.
Yeah, now and we saw that with weed, right? With marijuana, like you know, a lot of places went medical, legal for medicals, and then full recreational. A lot of places are going full recreational, like Massachusetts now, a bunch of states, and you kind of see the writing on the wall. Certain states or certain jurisdictions within states are starting to do the same thing with psychedelics. Where do you think that's going to go?
Yeah, I think mushrooms are going to go the way of cannabis.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
definitely mushrooms, because mushrooms are a little mild, you know, and maybe I think, you know, they're looking at a lot of like MDMA and ketamine, which me personally, I don't think they're psychedelics. I think they're speed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think they're fucking like speed. I don't fuck with either of those, but I think, you know, they have their place in a medical sense. LSD, I don't know. LSD is really strong and really intense and lasts a long time. So I don't know if that's ever going to be like sold over the counter, you know, like a dispensary. You know, I think but I do believe, you know, like people that have like traumatic events or PTSD, or people that have like fucked up shit that happened to them, you know, when they're young kids, you know, that they repress. I do believe like in a controlled environment, you know, with a doctor that knows what they're doing, you know, they can prescribe LSD and they can help people get past that. Because, you know, that's what it is, man. We all carry all these scars, man, from shit that happens to us in life, you know, be it a girlfriend broke up with us, you know, our dad didn't give us enough attention, you know, whatever it is, you know, you get 25 years, you know, some people even worse get raped or molested, you know, so we all have these scars, man. And I think really like LSD is the key to that. It's a key, you know, but you got to take it, and, you know, it's all about setting. You know, it's about your mindset going into it, and it's about the setting where you're doing it. It's got to be a controlled environment, you know, like dosage, because it's a very, very powerful drug. You know what I'm saying? So it should be controlled. But I think mushrooms are pretty tame. They're pretty light. You know, it kind of just makes you feel good. You know, you laugh, have a good time, get a kind of warm feeling, appreciate everything. So I think mushrooms are going to start being. I mean, you already see it now, like you know, like in Oakland, you can go to the dispensaries and they sell like mushroom chocolate bars.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And yeah. So, and in other places, you know, I think Denver too. So,
It surprised me that DC is like
yeah.
That's crazy to me.
DC's pretty progressive though. Progressive though.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that.
And what do you think about microdose and stuff, like with like, because I know that's a thing, a big thing now with for medical or for like mental health stuff that they're doing. Microdose and even LSD now they're working on that, and I know they're doing a lot of work with microdosing mushrooms and whatnot.
I microdose mushrooms. I microdose mushrooms all the time. So I get these pills and I do like, it might be like 0.5 gram of extract or 0.1 gram of extract.
Yeah.
And I do it all the time, man. I love it because it's just for me it helps me appreciate like what I have. You know, because in American culture, you know, we're so materialistic and we're always thinking like what the next man have, or we're always thinking like what we don't have.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, when I microdose mushrooms, you know, in that small amount, it just really makes me appreciate what I have. You know, it makes me appreciate my life, you know, my house, my wife, my dogs. It just gives me a really, you know, good sense of appreciation, you know, because I'm looking inward at what I have and who I am, and instead of like in American society, so many times we're looking outwards at like what other people are doing and other people have, you know, and in today's society, you know, everything's like so Instagram and Facebook, and people are flossing and fronting and flaunting, and you know, and like I say, you see stuff, and I mean, you know, there's a lot of attractive women out there, you know, you see stuff, or you see dudes have nice cars, or you know, dudes have nice whatever, you know, or dudes are doing stuff that you wish you were doing. So, you know, that's what I like to microdose a lot, because it just really grounds me and makes me appreciate who I am and what I have.
Yeah, it's good for perspective.
And not because a lot of times we take for granted what we have, man. We really do. We take for granted, you know, who we are and what we have, because we compare ourselves to other people. And you shouldn't compare yourself to anybody. You should only compare yourself to yourself.
Because most of the time, what you're comparing yourself to is a sham, because you're only seeing the picture they want you to see on social media. You don't see what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, you don't see the real life.
Yeah, absolutely. What else you got coming up, man? I know you were talking about an event earlier, but before we were doing the podcast, you got some stuff coming up that sounds real interesting. What's happening?
Yeah, so next Tuesday, 4/19, is Bicycle Day. So, you know, Bicycle Day is kind of like for psychedelics, like 4/20 is for cannabis.
Yeah.
And Bicycle Day, the chemist that synthesized LSD was Albert Hofmann. He was a Swiss chemist that worked for a German pharmaceutical company. So he synthesized it, and on April 19th, 1943, he decided to sample some of what he made. And he did it right before he went home from work. And what he did, he rode his bike home from work, back then, So that was like, he started tripping when he was riding his bike home from work. So that's why they call it Bicycle Day. So that was the first recorded trip. So to celebrate Bicycle Day, we're doing this event at the Midway. It's called the Bicycle Day Discovery Session, and it's kind of like a conference, slash film festival, because we got a whole bunch of different people, talking about psychedelics, where they're going, where they've been, the decriminalization, the war on drugs. And also what we're doing, we're going to show the first 25 minutes, basically the first act of my Psychedelic Revolution series. And then we're going to have a panel. And I got a bunch of people that I interviewed in the film there, like Carolyn Mountain Girl Garcia, who was Jerry Garcia's wife. She's going to be there. Roni Stanley, who was Bear Owsley Stanley, the mother of his child, and his wife is going to be there. Mark McLeod, Leonard Picard, the famous underground chemist, who just recently got out of prison. And Isaac Abrams, who's a big psychedelic, famous psychedelic artist. Hamilton Morris from Vice's Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia. Tim Tyler, who I mentioned before, and myself. So we're all going to be there, and we're going to be on the panel. And we're going to talk about the film. So, and then later that night they got a concert segment to it too. I think it starts like 9 p.m. So we're going to be on stage doing our thing, like basically 12 to 5:30. Then we're going to have a social hour, and all the people that have books, we're going to have like a book signings, like meet and greets. And then later that night, like at 9 p.m., they're going to have like all the techno and jam bands play from like 9 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Nice, man. Cool. What else? Anything else going on that we haven't talked about, man? I know. We've been in it for a little bit, and I appreciate the time.
Yeah, that's the most recent. I got a couple other projects I'm working on. So I got this film about nightlife. It's actually about a group of violence interrupters in North St. Louis. They kind of started doing their thing. They came out of the Ferguson situation, like the Ferguson riots. They kind of banded together, and this is one preacher named the Reverend Kenneth McCoy. And he's basically like a man on a mission to save his people. So we followed with cameras for 2 years. So I got that in the works. That's probably going to be out, later this summer, early fall. I got this other documentary called Dope Men, which is going to be out in the fall, which is about the mafia and heroin and how the mafia created the first international drug cartel back in the 1920s before Prohibition even ended. So, we go way back, and it has all the dudes like Arno Rothstein, Lucky Luciano, Jack Legs Diamond, like all these old famous mafiosos that kind of started the first international drug cartel. And that was a little later. Yeah, that was in the 50s, 60s. Yeah, so we're covering basically like the 20s to maybe the 20s to 40s before the French Connection. And then I got this other film that I directed that's probably going to be ready around September too, called Idiot Savant. And it's about like mental illness, drug addiction, PTSD, from prison. And it follows this story of this, this real talented kid from Santa Barbara, who he became like a real bad heroin addict. He got involved in drugs. He went to prison, and then he started writing in prison, and now he does like these junky fiction books, man. And he's like this really celebrated author. But he's still, Ryan Leone. Yeah, but he's done all these, events and sold all these books, but he still struggles with like addiction to this day, and he's gone back in prison, a couple times. And so, I made a film. We started making a film about him a couple of years ago, and that's almost done too. So that's called Idiot Savant: The Savage Life of Ryan Leone. So that's going to be out. I think that's a real special film too. So that's pretty much all the projects. I'm working on an MDMA project about this Atlanta Southside Boys. This big drug organization from the '90s based out of Atlanta. This guy named Ronnie Logan. So that's the six projects I got in motion right now. At various stages of completion. But they should all be finished up and coming out like in the next 12 months or so.
Yeah, man. It sounds like you got a big year coming up.
Yeah, and then on to features.
Yeah, hell yeah. Now, where can people find out more information about you like your film company or the things you got going on, all the projects you got happening?
Yeah, so I mean I got a website like SethFerranti.com, and then that has like all my stuff. You can order all my books. I got my wanted poster on there made into some blotter art, that you can order to autograph, and it has all information about my film. It has like all my articles that I wrote for like Penthouse Vice, all the like podcasts and appearances, I've done. So that's SethFerranti.com. And then on social media, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything under my name, Seth Ferranti. So, I post stuff, I keep people updated what I'm doing. And then too, I find like I put my opinion out there, like on different news items, what I think. And, if something pisses me off, I say it on social media, and I get really, my biggest thing right now is, let all the nonviolent cannabis prisoners out, man. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You got people making millions of dollars. You got ex-law enforcement, ex-politicians, ex-prosecutors cashing in on legal weed, and there's still like 40,000 nonviolent offenders locked up in prison.
Yeah.
Let these people out, man. You're making all this money. It's damn near legal. I mean, I know they haven't done federal, but I mean, Joe Biden needs to do his thing. He made all these campaign promises, that he's going to legalize weed and let all the pot prisoners out, but he hasn't done it. So, I just, that's something that's really, dear and close to my heart, and I just want to see him out, man. You shouldn't lock people up for weed. I mean, people are violent, whatever. That's, you got a gun, you use it, you're violent. That's what prison's for.
Yeah.
Or if you're selling these hard drugs like fentanyl, meth, cocaine. I mean, those are bad drugs. But I mean, we let the people out, man. People should definitely not be doing life, but they shouldn't be doing any time.
Yeah.
It's
insanity, man. And the craziest thing that I don't think enough people discuss is the whole emergence over the last couple decades of like privatized prisons and private prisons, like where it's like profit-based fucking prisons, like
yeah, it's an industry, man.
It's an industry. That's bananas, dude, because it's like the whole thing is like there's no incentive to ever let anybody out because you make your money by keeping people in there, and filling up
our president right now, Joe Biden, is the father of mass incarceration. He's the one that drafted those omni crime bills like way back in the late '80s that started the war on drugs. So it's crazy, Like I say, I'm not a big Biden fan, but yeah, man. As long as people like that are in power, man, it's going to stay the same because basically these lobbyists from these law enforcement and correctional institutions, they're the ones that have been paying for his campaigns and lining his pockets all these years. So he's not going to go against them, no matter what he says.
Yeah.
I mean, and like whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna blame somebody. You got to get your money where you get your money. Then this is America and all that. But when you're supposed to represent the people and all that, it just seems kind of fake.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's Washington, man. There's nothing I don't think we can do in our lifetime about that, man. Absolutely, But hey, Zac, did you have anything else you want to follow up on, man?
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good.
That's good. All right, Seth, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And we will be in touch, man. I'm gonna shut this recorder off, but I'm not gonna end right now. So hold on one second.